So today we're talking about getting unstuck. Have you ever been in this situation? You have a story that you've been assigned for your project. You take a look and you think, yeah, I can do this. So you get started. And an hour later, you realize, whoa, I haven't gotten anywhere. And you realize you don't have any ideas as far as how to proceed. And that you've just been doing the same thing over and over and over for the past 5 minutes at least. Well, this is a common scenario. It's easy to get stuck. Sometimes you've looked at a problem way too long and you can't even really see it clearly anymore. So today I'm going to talk about how can you get unstuck when you are working on some sort of problem and you're not really going anywhere. Well, there's a variety of ways. These are just some ways that I found to be helpful. However, this list is not exhaustible, not exhaustive, and I know that you probably have some really great ideas for things that work for you personally. So I'm going to invite everyone to go to the comment section and add what personally helps them to get unstuck when you run into a really tricky problem. So let's get started. One of the very famous ones that you've probably heard about is rubber ducking. So the idea is when you get stuck, sometimes all you really have to do is process the problem, which means you step back from the code and talk out the issue. So you might start talking about the problem itself, you describe it, you start talking about what you've tried to do so far, about what should happen, what's not happening, what kind of bugs, what kind of errors you're running into. But the trick here is you're not talking to someone with the idea that your colleague is going to be able to help you find a solution. And that's why the name used is rubber duck, because you could get a rubber duck or any inanimate object and talk to that. The idea isn't that your audience is going to help you. The idea is you talking about the problem helps you to break it down into smaller pieces, and it gives you kind of a different perspective. You're not digging into the issue trying to solve it now. Now you're trying to explain the issue. And sometimes in that process of explaining it, the answer becomes more apparent and you're able to get moving. So, yeah, rubber duck, it could be a stuffed cat, it could be a picture, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, it's up to you. But whatever helps you to change what mode you're thinking in and to get that different perspective so that you can see the problem from someone else's shoes. And that's something many developers would recommend and have found success in. Now, actually, one of my favorites is to take a break. So what I've noticed is oftentimes if I get stuck, if I continue there at the screen and I continue to try to solve the problem, I'll probably be there for several hours and won't get anywhere at all. But if I step away, go do something entirely unrelated, and come back, then I'm either going to solve the problem in the next few minutes or I'm going to get a really helpful clue in the next few minutes. And really, the next few minutes, often it's the next few seconds. It makes a huge difference. And that's what I've really found. It's almost like when you're consciously processing the problem, you can't see what you're looking at anymore. Kind of like the saying, you can't see the forest for the trees. You're staring at this one tree that's in front of you. You can see all the details of that tree, but you have no idea that you're in a forest. And I think that's what's happening here. You're looking at this problem and you're focusing in on one possible solution or a very small subset of possible solutions. and you're not seeing the big picture. You're not seeing the full context of how this problem is occurring, and that's keeping you from finding the ideas that actually are going to work, or at the very least, if it's not the solution, the ideas that are going to get you moving forward. And this even goes back to, before, when I discussed developer versus engineer, and how, in my opinion, developer really reflects the artistic and creative side of programming, and engineer reflects the more structured side, the more structured and logical, and here's a best way, best practices type of thing. And so it really gets back down to that concept again. Programming takes creativity. And I'm sure you've heard people talk about an aha moment all the time. And usually when people are talking about an aha moment, it's not while they're thinking about the problem. It's while they're off doing something else. Or you've heard, oh, I get my best ideas in the shower, or while I'm on a walk or on a run. Things in such as that. And the same thing applies to software development, because it really is a creative process. Even if it's similar to a problem you've solved before, if this very likely is a slightly different scenario, and that's why you're running into a bug. That's why you're having problems. There's no clear answer. You can't open up a search engine and find the exact code that you need, because you haven't solved the problem yet. And so there is a measure of innovation, even if it doesn't seem like what you're doing is very novel. There is that element of creativity and innovation, and trying to find the solution that fits in that specific code base, in that specific scenario, can be, actually needs not just logic, but creativity. And I think that's really why stepping away works. It's kind of like you're thinking of the problem consciously, but then for just a few minutes, you put it in the back of your head and you just let it process there for a little bit. And sometimes that allows you to think more creatively, to start putting some of the pieces together that you couldn't even see before. And then when you get back, you have a whole new perspective and you're able to make a lot more progress. That's honestly my favorite one, but there are others. And sometimes that one only gets me so far. And so in that case, I use this third one that I'm going to mention, which is more analytical. So this does go more to the engineering structured side, but at the same time, it's a little bit messy. Maybe some people would say, don't do it that way. Use a debugger, which actually I would suggest either way. You could accomplish this with a really good debugger, where you actually step into the code and you can see, okay, what data is actually coming into this method? What does this calculation do to that data? What do I have at this point? What specific error am I running into? And what line of code is generating it? A great debugger on your IDE absolutely can help you with that. And I often use that. I will use my debugging tools to really dig into a specific area of the code and to analyze, what is this specific block of code doing? Just because maybe I'm looking at the forest and missing the tree that's right in front of me. And that is sometimes exactly what I need to do. Other times, I can actually start throwing in print statements, even though every single article you read and book will say don't use print statements, use a proper debugger. However, I know so many engineers that will throw in print statements, especially when they're coding in Python, or if they're in JavaScript, they're doing all sorts of console.logs. And there's a common kind of merge request issue of people leaving print statements and console.logs in their code. So that is something that people use. That is a tool that's available, and sometimes it actually is very useful and it reveals exactly what you need. Um, but the point is, whether you use print statements or console.log, or if you're using a proper debugger, the point is you want to dig into that specific piece of code, break it down to its smallest pieces, even if that comes to the variable level. You want to know exactly what this variable is doing over here and what this one is doing over here. You want to actually trace the logic from A to B to C to D in order to fully understand what's working and really, in this case, what's not working. And that will help you to compare, because in this case, maybe you have the big picture. Maybe you understand the full system, how things are supposed to work, but you really need to dig in now to the bits and pieces of it and see exactly where is it not matching up with that big picture idea. And so that's the third method that I would propose as being super useful for getting unstuck. And you look at these methods and you might think, well, they're very different. Some of them maybe is a favorite of yours. Maybe you don't like some of them. For me personally, I feel like I use the second and the third one quite a bit. And it really varies as far as which one is going to be more useful to me at any given time. So that's where a lot of the art comes back in, the art of knowing which tool is actually going to help you in that scenario. Um, I haven't really used the rubber duck one that much, but I have used it. And I do find that sometimes that is the solution, that talking to someone else helps you to actually get past wherever you're stuck, because it does give you a different perspective. And I kind of feel like the first option and the second option are very similar to each other, as the whole purpose is to get you to look at the problem in a different way. But probably the first one, in a sense, combines option two and option three, because option two is all about letting your brain form all the little connections and see the bigger picture and process in the back of your head and completely be anything but analytical for a few minutes. Option three is about being highly analytical and understanding what each little tiny piece does. And option one, as you're explaining the problem, you probably touch on both things, both the big picture and the small bits and pieces. That's a more analytical perspective. So that might be your preference, to go straight for the rubber duck method, and many have found it useful. But there's another option. There's another option that I haven't thrown out there yet, and that option is go talk to an AI. But be careful with this one, because at as of right now, here in 2023 of November, you can't really rely on AI to be 100% accurate. So you can ask it, and what I found it the most useful for me, as an engineer, is if I can't remember, I have an idea, I know what problem I'm trying to solve, I know how I'm going to solve it, but I can't remember the exact syntax because it's not something that I do very often. Maybe it's a language I don't work in often, or maybe it is a language I work in a lot, but it's a part of the language that I don't use all the time. So I'll go ask AI, how would I do this? And then see what the answer is, and see if I can use it or if I can't use it. That's the thing. You have to evaluate the answer. You have to see for yourself if it actually works. And oftentimes I'll get part of my answer from AI, and then I will have to figure out the rest. And that's okay. It's a tool. It's an excellent tool. But it's not at the point where you can ask it for some code and it'll just give you some code. One of the things that's probably very lacking in AI right now is, despite what people commonly say about programming, programming does actually require a lot of creativity. And AI isn't quite there with the creativity and human problem solving abilities. Even though it can give you some code, it's not going to be innovative. And also, as you've heard with the what they're calling the hallucinations, where it gives you information that's not quite right, you're going to get that too. You're going to get a lot of wrong answers, and it's kind of fun sometimes to tell the AI, "Hey, that doesn't work because dot dot dot," and then you'll see the AI say, "Oh, I'm sorry, you are correct." Um, and then the AI will give you some sort of updated answer. The really fun part there is when the updated answer is also incorrect, and you can get into a kind of loop telling the AI, hey, that wasn't wrong, and getting an apology and a new answer. So there is some caution to be used there as far as just not simply copying and pasting everything the AI says, but it is a tool and it can be useful and it can help you to get unstuck. Even if it doesn't give you the right answer, what it does tell you could give you an idea that will help you to move forward. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for this topic today of getting unstuck. And like I said before, I want to open it up to the audience. If you think of anything else that you like that helps you to get unstuck when working on a particularly difficult problem, please put it down in the comments below. Also, if you have another topic that you think would be interesting for me to talk about, put it in the put that in the comments. I'll be happy to discuss it at some future video. Bye.